Okay, so you ever scroll through your feed and like suddenly feel really bad about yourself? Like everyone else is living this amazing life and you're just,
Oh, yeah, definitely. We've all been there, right? It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game when you're constantly bombarded with these picture perfect moments from other people's lives.
right. Like last week, I saw this post from a friend on vacation. It was like crystal clear water, white sand beaches,
Mhm.
the whole 9 yards. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, my life is so boring.
It's like everyone's presenting this curated version of themselves online. It's a highlight reel, not the full story,
Yeah.
But it's hard to remember that when you're scrolling through and seeing all these amazing things.
It really is.
Oh,
So like what's going on in our brains when we're doing that? Is there's like some psychological reason why social media makes us feel so bad about ourselves sometimes?
well, comparison is just kind of human nature, right? We're wired to size each other up, and social media just gives us a platform for it.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
But the problem is, it's a totally rigged game. We're comparing our everyday lives to everyone else's highlight reels, and that's just a recipe for feeling inadequate. Plus, you never know what's happening behind the scenes, right? That friend on the beach. They could be having a terrible time, but they're not going to post about that.
You're totally right. I remember seeing this picture of a friend at this fancy party looking all glamorous. And later I found out she'd actually spilled red wine all over herself, like 5 minutes before the picture was taken. But you wouldn't know that from the photo.
Exactly. It's all about presenting this perfect image. And that pressure to appear perfect can really mess with our self-esteem.
Especially with all the filters and editing tools available now. It's crazy how much you can change your appearance with just a few clicks.
Right. Like filters used to be just for fun, adding bunny ears or whatever. But now they can literally reshape your face, smooth out your skin, make you look completely different.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it. Like, what even is real anymore?
Exactly. And that's the filter effect, right? This idea that we're constantly being exposed to these altered images, and it starts to warp our perception of what's normal and achievable. Like we start to think we need to look like a filtered version of ourselves to be beautiful or
Like
accepted.
this weird, distorted mirror we're all holding up to ourselves.
It is, and it can be really damaging, especially for young people who are still developing their sense of self.
I think we're all guilty of it to some extent, though. I mean, I've definitely spent way too long trying to find the perfect filter for a selfie.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's become almost instinctive for a lot of us. We see these idealized images everywhere and we start to feel like we need to measure up. But it's important to remember that those images aren't real.
It's all just smoke and mirrors, right?
Exactly. And the more we buy into it, the more we lose sight of our own unique beauty and worth.
So true. It's like we're trading authenticity for likes.
And that's a pretty bad deal in the long run.
Okay, so we've talked about comparison and the pressure to appear perfect. But there's another biggie when it comes to social media, and that's FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Ugh, FOMO, the worst. Social media is like a breeding ground for it. Everyone's always posting about all the fun things they're doing, the amazing places they're going, the delicious food they're eating.
He's like, everyone else is at this never-ending party, and you're stuck at home doing laundry.
And of course, nobody's posting about the boring parts of their lives, right? They're
Yeah.
not sharing pictures of themselves stuck in traffic or arguing with their partner or feeling down. So we get this really skewed perspective of reality.
You're so right. Like, one time I saw a friend posting pictures from this music festival. She looked like she was having the time of her life. I was totally envious. But later I found out that she'd actually lost her wallet and phone on the first day and spent the rest of the weekend totally stressed out. But you would never have known that from her posts.
Exactly. And that's the danger of FOMO, right? It makes us believe that everyone else is having these amazing experiences that we're missing out on. And it can lead to feelings of inadequacy and dissatisfaction with our own lives.
It's like this constant pressure to be doing more, experiencing more, being more.
And it's exhausting. It can be really hard to just relax and enjoy the present moment when you're constantly worried about what you're missing out on.
Okay, so we've talked about comparison, the pressure to appear perfect, and FOMO. But there's also like the straight up negativity of social media, the cyberbullying, the they hate speech, the online trolls. It's like a whole other beast.
It really is. And it can be incredibly damaging, especially for young people who are still figuring out who they are and where they fit in the world. Imagine being bombarded with hateful comments or threats online.
It's heartbreaking. It's like the anonymity of the internet gives people permission to say things they would never say to someone's face.
Absolutely. And it can have real world consequences too. We've seen how online hate and harassment can spill over into offline violence.
It's a scary thought. It makes me wonder, What does the research say about all of this? Like, is there a proven link between social media and mental health?
There's definitely a growing body of research that suggests a strong connection. Studies have shown that excessive social media use is linked to increased levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and even suicidal thoughts.
Wow, that's really alarming. But it makes sense, right? When you're constantly comparing yourself to others, feeling pressure to be perfect and bombarded with negativity, it's bound to take a toll on your mental health.
It's like we're feeding our minds junk food. We wouldn't expect to be healthy if we ate fast food every day, so why would we expect our minds to be healthy if we're constantly consuming negative and unrealistic content online?
I've heard about this one study where people who limited their social media use to just 30 minutes a day reported significant improvements in their well-being.
Yeah, that's a really interesting study, and it kind of makes sense, right? When we're less consumed by social media, we have more time and energy to focus on things that actually nourish our minds and bodies, like spending time with loved ones, pursuing hobbies, or just being present in the moment.
30 minutes a day, though, that's a tough challenge. I feel like I spend way more time than that just scrolling mindlessly.
I know, it's hard. Social media is designed to be addictive, but that doesn't mean we're powerless against it. There are definitely things we can do to break free from the grip of the scroll.
So, like what? What are some practical steps we can take to create a healthier relationship with social media?
Well, the first step is awareness, right? We
Mhm.
need to start paying attention to how much time we're actually spending on social media and how it's making us feel. Once we have a better understanding of our own habits and patterns, we can start to make changes.
So, like taking inventory of our social media diet, so to speak.
Exactly. Are we consuming content that makes us feel good, that inspires us, that connects us with others in a positive way? Or are we just scrolling mindlessly, filling our minds with junk?
It's like we need to be more intentional with our social media consumption, just like we try to be with our food choices.
Exactly. And just like with food, we need to be mindful of portion control. We can set limits on our screen time, choose specific times of day for checking social media, or use apps to block distracting websites.
So, it's all about creating boundaries and setting ourselves up for success. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also about finding alternative activities that bring us joy and fulfillment. Instead of scrolling through our phones, we could be reading a book, going for a walk, spending time with loved ones, pursuing hobbies, or just being present in the moment and enjoying the simple things in life.
It's like remembering that real life is happening outside the screen, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the real adventure lies.
Exactly. And the more we disconnect from the virtual world and reconnect with the real world, the more we'll realize that true happiness and fulfillment come from within, not from the number of likes or followers we have online.
That's such an important message. It's so easy to get caught up in the social media game and forget what truly matters.
It really is. But the good news is we have the power to change our relationship with social media. We can choose to use it as a tool for connection and inspiration rather than letting it control our lives and dictate our self-worth.
It's all about finding that balance, isn't it? Using social media in a way that supports our well-being rather than detracting from it. And I think that's something we can all strive for.
Absolutely. And the more we prioritize our mental health and well-being, the happier and more fulfilled we'll be, both online and offline. And it's so important to remember those real life things, right? Those moments and experiences that are just so much richer and more meaningful than anything you'll find online. They're messy and unpredictable, sure, but they're filled with like genuine connection, laughter, surprise.
Yeah, I know you're right. Sometimes I think we just forget that. We get so sucked into that perfect world online that we lose sight of all the amazing stuff happening right in front of us.
It's like trading in the real thing for a knockoff. And the worst part is we don't even realize we're doing it.
Okay, so how do we break free from this? How do we start living more authentically, both online and offline?
Well, I think a good place to start is with what we're posting. Are we sharing things because they truly reflect who we are? Or are we just trying to impress people, you know? Project a certain image.
It's like we're all putting on a performance for some invisible audience.
Exactly. And the more we focus on that performance, the further we drift from our true selves.
So maybe instead of trying to be perfect, we should just try to be more real, more vulnerable.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are afraid to show our true selves online. We're scared of being judged or rejected.
I get that. It's hard to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
But I also think that the more we hide behind these perfect facades, the more isolated we become.
It's in those moments of vulnerability when we let our guard down that we create space for real connection.
Maybe it's not about erasing the negative or pretending everything is perfect. Maybe it's about embracing the whole package.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the messy, all of it.
Yes, embracing the messy package. That's where the real beauty lies. It's in those imperfections and those moments of vulnerability that we find our humanity.
We're all works in progress, right? Constantly evolving and making mistakes and learning and growing.
And that's okay. That's what makes life interesting. And
Mhm.
social media can actually be a great tool for connecting with people who are going through similar things,
Mhm.
People who can offer support and remind you that you're not alone.
It's about finding those communities that lift you up and inspire you and make you feel seen.
Exactly. And remembering that we have a choice. We can choose to use social media in a way that supports our well-being.
Or we can let it consume us.
The power is in our hands.
I love that taking back our power. It's a reminder that we're not just passive consumers, we're active participants. We can shape our experience and create a digital world that reflects our values.
And it all starts with being mindful of what we consume, what we post, how it makes us feel.
Because if it's not making us feel good, if it's not adding value to our lives, maybe it's time to reevaluate our relationship with it.
Maybe it's time to step away from the screen and reconnect with the real world, with the people and experiences that truly matter.
You know, it's funny, you mentioned social media as a tool for connection, but it can also be a barrier to connection.
Yeah.
Like how often are you out with friends and everyone's just on their phones?
Oh my gosh, all the time. It's like we're physically present, but mentally miles away.
We're missing out on those real connections
Yeah.
right in front of us.
It's a paradox, right? We use social media to connect, but it can end up making us feel more alone.
It makes me think about setting boundaries, like having phone-free zones or times a day where you just disconnect.
Yes. Creating space for real connection. Because at the end of the day, it's those face-to-face interactions that really nourish our souls.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah,
Using social media as a tool, but not letting it become our master.
exactly. And that balance looks different for everyone. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about figuring out what works for you,
Yeah.
what helps you feel connected and grounded and fulfilled.
So it's really about being intentional,
Mhm.
right? Asking yourself, why am I using this? Is it actually serving me?
Those are great questions to ask yourself. And if the answers aren't aligning with your values, then maybe it's time to make a change.
Maybe it's time to unfollow those accounts that make you feel bad, or limit your screen time, or just prioritize those real-life connections.
Remember that your worth isn't measured by the number of likes or followers you have.
It comes from within, from your unique qualities and talents and passions.
Exactly. You are enough, just as you are.
Imperfect, messy, and beautifully human.
And that's a message worth sharing, both online and offline.
You know, it's interesting. We always talk about social media like it's this separate thing, like it's happening to us. But really, we're the ones creating it, right?
Yeah.
We choose to be on it.
Oh, absolutely. That's such an important point. We forget that we have the power. We can choose how it affects us. Social media isn't some big monster controlling our lives. We can decide how much we let it influence us.
So it's not about being a victim. It's about being more like an editor.
Yes, exactly. We can be the editors of our own online experience. We can choose to follow accounts that inspire us, that make us laugh, that make us think.
And we can choose to step away when it's not doing those things.
You got it. We don't owe anyone our attention. We can disconnect, unplug, take care of ourselves.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking about like the highlight reel versus the director's cut of our lives. You know what I mean?
Oh, tell me more.
So the highlight reel, that's what we see on social media, right? It's all the good stuff, the vacations, the perfect moments. But the director's cut, that's the whole story.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the messy, the real.
And it's in that director's cut where we find the real connection, the real meaning.
It's like we're giving ourselves permission to be human, to embrace all of it.
And those imperfections, those are what make us unique, what make us beautiful.
What if we all started sharing more of our director's cuts? Online and offline, being more honest about our struggles, our fears.
I think it'd be amazing. It would create a world where we can all just be ourselves, show up with all our flaws and know that it's okay.
It would be like this collective sigh of relief,
Yeah.
We could all finally stop pretending to be perfect.
And we'd be reminded that true beauty is about being authentic.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much for all of your insights.
It was my pleasure. And remember, the next time you feel overwhelmed by all the perfection online, just take a breath, put down your phone, and step away. Go for a walk, spend time with people you love, do something that brings you joy. Real life is so much more interesting than anything you'll find on your feed.
That's so true. Thanks again for joining us.